Jenny, you mentioned that you just came from dungeon.
Mhm.
What is dungeon and what do you do there?
Yeah, so the dungeon that I work out of is here in Oakland, and it's a really high-end luxury dungeon. I do various things there. Like sometimes I'll just take a photo shoot for my business. Sometimes I'll be taking a coaching client in there where we're going over all the different tools and toys, and I'm teaching them like how to use it, how to use it safely, teaching them negotiation in the dungeon setting. And sometimes I rent it out for like a couple, and I teach them how to do things to each other. So there's a bunch of different things that can happen in the dungeon. So those are just a few.
Wow. Okay. So like playing at home is one thing, but when you go to dungeon, it like brings the whole intensity and variety of toys, right?
Yeah, so it's the variety of toys. There's also a lot of sex furniture. So, for example, at my space, and I can just like turn this around to show you, like, okay, stairs are cool because then I can like tie people up to these different rails. So, like, that's cool that I have that there. But generally speaking, in like a home, there's not really so many places. Like, here I can tie things
Oh.
here, so that's great. But in a dungeon, there's different furniture and things that just make it more easeful for the bondage portion of things. That just makes it more fun. And for people that are really into that like taboo, then the setting of it can feel just even more erotic. So there's a lot of benefits to having access to a dungeon. So I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next portion, the dominance and submission, and that's I feel like that's something I played with. And when I interacted again, like without education, just like we figured it out, I know that I like to be submissive. Like there is something very hot when I feel like there is the strong person tells me what to do. I lose control. I like to be called a good girl. Like that's a big turn on for me. Um, and then my husband happened to be submissive too. And so the question is that, is it possible for us to play together? Like, do you recommend to, like, for me, who loves to be submissive so much, to try to be dominant? Like, is it natural? Is it authentic? And like, yeah.
Yeah. So when I first started with BDSM, I actually felt like I could never be dominant.
Oh
There's
my
so
God,
much
you
to
feel
say
like
that out loud. Yeah, and what I found for myself is that I just wasn't, I didn't feel like I knew enough about dominance to authentically be dominant. I didn't feel like I could hold a container. I didn't feel like I knew the right questions to ask. I didn't have the confidence in using the tools. And so then when I just started to learn more about dominance and about holding a container and about the different tools, I found what parts authentically felt like a yes for me. And that's where I play within, is where I am an authentic yes in my dominance. And there's different tools and techniques that I could share for that. And one of the easiest ones is just to look into like female dominance archetypes. So for me, I really love to look at like, Marvel or that sort of world. And I tune into a lot of Harley Quinn. Like I'm really playful and silly, and she's really strong yet sexy. And like she's dominant because she's strong and sort of mischievous, but she's also really submissive to the Joker, and she'll do whatever he says. So that really plays in with my sexuality, which is very switchy. And I also like love like Catwoman, like the nails and the scratchy. I love to scratch, and I love to just like purr if I'm having a good time. So you can look outside into the culture and look at the strong female archetypes, both good and bad. Like I got a lot of Michelle Obama in me. I really love, and I want, have a lot of that grace. And I love to be linguistic and to be able to express myself well. And to have Ellen DeGeneres because she's really silly too. So it's pulling from all parts of the culture of women that you look to, and you're like, wow, like that woman's amazing, and what things about them make you feel that. And from there you can tune into more of your dominance archetypes by looking at that. So that's
Mm. So that's like very eye-opening for me, because like, are you saying that every person has like both? Maybe we lean in more towards certain.
yeah, I mean, you could. I think for me in my journey, I just found that I felt like I couldn't be dominant because for me, it was a lack of confidence of not really knowing or exploring it well. I think some people like they try both and they're like, for sure I'm just dominant, or for sure I'm just submissive. And I feel whatever you feel for you is true. And I would say if you do find that ultimately you just love being submissive, then and your partner feels the same way, then I would say find a third. I'm sure there'd be a super kinky dominant person that would love to play with two submissive humans. I feel like that would be really fun. And just even just a ringleader of like, you do this to her, she does this to you, and like just the one that's like in charge of making you guys have a great time.
Wow, I love that. I love all the options. Like there's this like abundance of options.
That's what I love about it too. It's like a smorgasbord of just like there's endless possibilities of how you can have a great connected fun time together.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned your journey. Curious about your journey. How did you come around BDSM? What was your first experience? How did you find it?
Yeah, I get this asked all the time, and every time I share about it, the person that got me into BDSM always is like, ooh, he loves hearing me say this. It was a lover when I was in college. He, you know, had quit his corporate job, went and traveled to Southeast Asia, came back, and he was part of this entrepreneurial group I was a part of in college. And I was like a hard no to him for a long time. And he had all of these sex toys because him and his friend would make handmade leather sex toys somewhat like this. This is not it. I made one similar to his, but he would make sex toys like this. And he would like invite me and some friends onto boats, and we would play with the toys, and it would just be like sexy but non-sexual. So there's like sexual energy present, obviously, when you're spanking and playing with leather sex toys, but there wasn't any overt sexual things happening. And so that felt really inviting for me to just be where I was with the boundaries I had and to get access to play with the toys with no expectations of it needing to escalate into anything. And from there, it naturally did escalate into something at some point. And I'd always been like, just like loved it. I thought it was a really beautiful way to be in connection with people without it needing to be overtly sexual. And it just opened up all this spaciousness and this new way of connecting I had never had access to, which is
Wow.
largely communicated, like knowing your boundaries and your desires and consent. Like that was so new to me. And then non-monogamous relationships, like that was totally new to me too. And it just opened up all of these possibilities for authentic connection because I was able to negotiate my actual needs and my actual desires, and that felt so liberating for me. And I just, from there, that seed was planted and evolved into what it is now, which is me helping other people to create that in their own lives.
And this brings the next question, that how are you in life with talking to people about BDSM? Like, do you talk to can you talk to everyone? Like, how about your parents?
Yeah, my parents. That's a tough one, right? I think it's so interesting because it's like I'm pretty open about my life and my work with my parents, and I think that they don't really want to hear about it. Like I might mention things here and there, and I don't think that they generally like really want to hear. Like they'll just be like, uh-huh. So I don't think that they're necessarily opposed to it, like if I'm wanting to share a thing, but I don't necessarily like, I'm not so open with particularly my mom and stepdad. My dad, however, is like curious, and my dad loves to hear about it, but you know, I won't say like the exact things of things. I'll filter it a little bit. But like my friends all know what I'm into, and I love to talk about BDSM. And when I first got into coaching, I loved to be like sort of the shock factor person and like be the mirror for people's own unresolved shame in their sexuality. So I used to really love being like overtly like kinky and taboo, because I kind of like I would get turned on by people yucking my yum a little bit. Like I found that to be kind of like in some way erotic for me. If someone was like, oh, look at that person that's like doing kinky stuff or like has a whip or something like that. But I've sort of released that a little bit more now. I'm just more in myself and not needing to do a particular thing to get turned on. I don't know. I've sort of just released that way of being, but I'm very open about what I do. And I love talking about kink and BDSM. It's literally my favorite thing in the world because it's transformed my life so much of just opening up like the possibilities of what connection can look like, which is really anything is possible as long as you know yourself well and can negotiate with someone and feel like there's a container of safety to talk about your desires in an authentic way. And so I love to talk about it.
Oh my God, I'm feeling goosebumps as you're talking about this. Wow, that's amazing. Because I used to work in BDSM porn company, and I
Mhm.
feel like watching porn, being around, it still didn't bring me as much understanding as I'm getting from you right now.
Oh,
It's
it
amazing.
feels so good.
Yeah.
Thank you.